There's one image that has haunted Japan for nearly 200 years. A paper lantern, glowing softly in the darkness, and from within it, a woman's face slowly emerges. One eye droops downward, her skin blistered, and her hair falling out on one side of her head. Almost every Japanese person, the moment they see this image, immediately knows one name: Oiwa. But Oiwa's story isn't just legend. To this day, whenever a Japanese film studio or theater group wants to remake her story, there's one ritual that must be performed. The entire crew must visit her shrine first to ask for permission and protection. Skip it? Many believe accidents, strange illnesses, even death will follow that production. But the most terrifying part of this story isn't the ghost. It's one fact, only uncovered when you dig into the real history. A fact that makes this entire story feel far sadder than frightening. Stay until the end of this video. This story is set in Edo, the old name for Tokyo, during the age of the samurai. Oiwa was the wife of a ronin named Iemon, a masterless samurai, known as ambitious, wasteful, and never truly satisfied with his life. Their marriage from the very start was far from happy. Iemon wanted something more: marriage to Oume, the daughter of a wealthy neighboring family. To get it, he secretly accepted a potion, described as medicine to help Oiwa recover after childbirth. But the potion wasn't medicine. It was poison. The poison worked slowly and cruelly, not killing, but disfiguring. Gradually, Oiwa's face began to blister. One eye drooped permanently. Her hair fell out in irregular patches on one side of her head. And the most painful part? Oiwa herself didn't yet know what was happening to her face. Iemon, disgusted by his wife's condition, devised a cunning plan. He ordered his subordinate, Takuetsu, to rape Oiwa, so he'd have a legitimate reason to divorce her without appearing cruel. But Takuetsu couldn't bring himself to do it. Instead, he did something that, without realizing it, was even crueler. He held up a mirror in front of Oiwa, making her see her own face for the first time since the poison began its work. What happened next destroyed Oiwa completely. Not just her face, but her entire being. In a mix of shock, rage, and despair, she grabbed a sword, and in the chaos, she fatally wounded herself. Oiwa's body, along with the body of a servant named Kohei, also killed for knowing too much, was nailed to a wooden door panel, then thrown into the river. This is where one of the most famous scenes in Japanese kabuki theater was born. Toita Gaeshi, the door panel flipping over on the water, revealing two dead faces alternately to the audience. Iemon married Oume as planned, but on their wedding night, when he lifted the cloth covering his bride's face, what he saw wasn't Oume's face. What he saw was Oiwa's ruined face staring back at him. In panic and terror, Iemon immediately killed the figure before him, who turned out to truly be Oume, not an illusion. That same night, still gripped by visions of Oiwa's face, he also killed Oume's grandfather, mistaking him for someone else. From that night on, Iemon was never alone again. Oiwa's face appeared in the paper lantern of his room, appeared in the bowl of rice he ate, appeared in reflections of water, in mirrors, in the faces of people passing in front of him. He killed, then killed again, but each time the one he killed wasn't Oiwa, but another innocent person. Gradually, Iemon's sanity collapsed completely until he himself was killed. This story was first staged as a kabuki drama in 1825, and ever since, strange things have continued to happen each time it's revived. In one film production, the actress playing Oiwa suddenly developed a strange skin rash on her face. At the same location, a lighting technician was electrocuted, and production was halted entirely. Now, let's look at this story from a psychological angle. And the most fascinating part isn't actually the ghost, but Iemon. In psychology, there's a real phenomenon called guilt-induced hallucination. People who commit serious violence against someone they know closely often report continuing to see their victim's face, anywhere, for years after the event. A brain consumed by guilt will keep searching for that face, and eventually find it. Even in shadows, water reflections, or random patterns that mean nothing at all. Now, about the poison that disfigured Oiwa's face. This isn't just a playwright's fantasy. In the Edo period, many women used a white face powder called oshiroi, which mostly contained lead and sometimes mercury. Long-term use of this powder genuinely caused severe skin damage, hair loss, facial muscle paralysis, and even early death. This was a real, hidden beauty epidemic of its time. The poison that ruins a face story is most likely a mirror of a very real fear many Edo-era women held about their own bodies. As for the face appearing in the paper lantern, this relates to pareidolia, the brain's ability to detect faces in any object. Japanese paper lanterns have texture, folds, and flame shadows that constantly move, a perfect combination for forming a face in the eyes of someone already anxious. The more frightened a person is, the more sensitive their brain becomes at detecting faces in random places, a vicious cycle between fear and perception. And as for the Oiwa curse, still believed today, this is a perfect example of the nocebo effect and confirmation bias. Nocebo is the opposite of placebo. When someone believes something bad will happen, their body and mind can genuinely respond as if it were real, increasing stress and making crew members more careless on sets full of dangerous equipment. People also tend to remember incidents that fit the curse, while forgetting the countless productions that ran perfectly fine. But here's the most shocking part of all. Oiwa really did live. She was a real person who lived in Edo in the early 17th century and died in 1636. But the real Oiwa's life was the complete opposite of this horror story. The real Oiwa was known as an extremely loyal, devoutly religious wife in a happy marriage. To this day, people still visit her shrine, not to avoid a curse, but to pray for a harmonious marriage. Almost 200 years after her death, a kabuki playwright named Tsuruya Nanboku IV took Oiwa's name and good reputation, then created a completely different story, full of poison, betrayal, and revenge. And that fictional story became so powerful, it replaced the real story of Oiwa, who actually lived peacefully and was deeply respected. Maybe the real curse isn't Oiwa's anger at being killed in the story. Maybe the real curse is this: a real person's true identity, slowly erased and replaced by someone else's story for nearly 2 centuries, and still continuing today. So what do you think is more terrifying? A disfigured ghost woman who haunted her husband to death? Or the fact that a real person's identity can be completely erased by a story, just because that story sold better? Write your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe to this channel for the next horror psychology video, because there's still one more from Japan's 3 great ghosts, and its story has a twist that's just as shocking.